actually just came from Tonawanda in the United States of America. I did a show there like an hour ago, and now I'm here. 2 shows, 2 countries, 1 night. Thank you very much. I have performed comedy now in front of well over 35 individuals, of which 2 of them came directly to me, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "We are so proud you are our son." So, I was happy to get here. I was worried. I was crossing the border there. I was incredibly upset about the little bit of blockage that came up there. I was caught in a little bit of traffic, and I was concerned about traffic in general. But I'll tell you, it reminded me as I was worried about getting here on time, of a time that I was on my way to do a show in Guelph, Ontario. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Guelph. Oh, fans of Guelph. I heard fans of Sterling out here earlier. That was amazing. Really? Well, you're from Sterling? You sang there. Wow. Anybody else sing somewhere? Do we have anybody else who sings places? That's odd. I once asked the crowd, anybody here been to Newfoundland? And a girl put up her hand and said, "I haven't." So I was like, what? I don't get it. Anyways, let me tell my stories now, because yours was not exciting. So as I was going in traffic, a flashback to this moment. I was going to go do this show in Guelph, and I was running late for the show, and I don't like traffic, and you're inching along, and you know along the 401, you get those jam-ups, and every time you look in your rearview mirror, you can't see anything because the people behind you, there's always that one individual that thinks they're going to speed this process up by gunning it, that 1 inch. And you go, it's usually the big trucks, and you look in your rearview mirror, you can't see anything. And I remember that one day as I inched forward, I looked up and I'm like, "Get off my tail." And I inched forward again, and I looked up and this is dangerous. Like, I can't see anything. And then I inched forward one more time, and I was so mad. I was like, "Get off, I can't see." And I did something that day that I had never done before, nor do I hope to ever do again. And I got out of my car. And it wasn't some sort of superhuman feat, because we were barely moving. But I was in full rant by the time my foot hit that pavement. And I turned around, and that was when I remembered that I was pulling a trailer.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. A comedian that is up north, just above us, Canada and the United States. Of course, he was featured as an all-star on the 2007 comedy tournament CD, Timmy Boyle. In 2009, he established himself as a comedic force after launching his upstanding comedy tour while performing on multiple Canada-wide tours. He has hosted UCB, Canada's Rise and Shine Morning Show, been heard on the syndicated U.S. radio program, the Darren Streblow Comedy Show, which I had a chance to appear on not too long ago. Darren, a really good guy. And he also appeared on both Juice TV and Yes TV as a finalist on the reality TV show Comedy Tournament 2. As an award-winning writer, he has been a regular performer and workshop presenter at Faith Writers conferences, and in 2014 celebrated the release of his first book, Inside Timmy's Mind. You gotta love it. He has been a featured performer on the nationwide date night comedy tour, which you were just witnessing just a moment ago, and can be seen regularly across Ontario as founder and host of The Circuit, Canada's first clean comedy circuit. He most recently finished as a Clean Comedy Challenge finalist at the legendary Ice House Comedy Club in Pasadena, California. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, please welcome the very funny and the very talented Timmy Boyle. What's up, Timmy? How are you, buddy?
Excellent. I'm doing well, Maurice. Thank you. that was the best reading of my bio that I've ever heard. So kudos to you, my friend.
Well, thank you, Timmy. I'll tell you, man, I get excited when I got some really good comics on my show. I love it. I love to have great comics on my show, and you are definitely one of those comics. We're in the midst, Timmy, of this crazy pandemic. As comedians, dude, it really hurts us a lot because this is our lifeblood source, man, being in front of large crowds on a regular basis. What are you doing to kind of supplement the inability to be out there right now, Timmy?
So far I haven't found a way to supplement it at all. Here's the thing, though. What I've realized, and I don't know if it's a good statement about my life, but my life hasn't really changed much. This is what I've been doing for the last 12 years. I sit at home, and other than the fact that I don't go on the road on tour, my daily life is literally napping, going online, writing jokes. So I actually live in a little village in Sterling, Ontario up here that, quite frankly, it's so small. We've been social distancing since 1858. So I really look out the window sometimes and go, what pandemic?
Right. Well, I was going to ask you what you thought, and I'm getting the impression you're probably not doing it, but I'm going to ask anyway. Have you been doing any Zoom shows?
I have been doing some Zoom shows, and it took a little while to get used to, but quite frankly, as you saw in that opening clip, I don't like traffic. So the very fact that I can get out of my bed, which is right over there, come on here. I haven't worn pants, Maurice, in like over almost a year now. So it's like, does it really get any better than this? I mean, it did force me though to learn. We talked just before we got on here about the technology thing. I'm not a technology guy. But actually, it forced me. I just left tour when this whole thing came down. I came home, and 2 days later, I started an Instagram live show called Calling Comedians into Quarantine. And we ended up doing 100 episodes of that. And I just kind of figured it out as we went. Those are all actually up online. We can talk about it later if you want. But I talked to 65 comics from all over the world, just talking about life and comedy. But I didn't know what I was doing, and I still don't get this tech world, and I don't think it's ultimately going to stay here, but I'm doing the best I can with it.
Well, this 2020, now 2021, a lot of people thought that they wanted to get rid of 2020. The only problem is it didn't take the pandemic with it.
Yes.
So we're still here dealing with it, and it's crazy, man. 2021, my wife and I saw this lady loading, get this, Timmy, her 2021 Tesla. And it was one of those doors where it goes up like that. One of those cool deals like that, Timmy.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was awesome. It was absolutely incredible, Timmy. Yeah. She was in front of a Walmart. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if anybody is anywhere, they're in front of a Walmart. That's apparently the only thing still open. So,
how much you want to bet she lives in the Tesla, Timmy? But no, it's been a crazy year, man. I'm telling you, it's been crazy. And I was gonna listen. You're in Canada. Nobody's doing outside shows in Canada. But let me tell you something. In Florida, California, parts of Texas, people are still doing outside shows, and people are doing socially distanced shows. When was the last time you were actually on stage, Timmy?
Oh, man. It might have been Father's Day. If I've been on stage since then, people will have to forgive me because it's all been kind of a blur. But I did this Father's Day gig. I took it. It was just like I was grasping for straws at that point. And it was on a patio at a bar where they usually had music. Nobody wanted to listen to a comic. It wasn't even advertised as a comic. They literally just wanted to talk to their dad. And I'm trying to go up to the tables and engage. And they're like, who is this guy? It's Father's Day. I'm just trying to talk. It was, I actually almost got in a fight with a guy who was riding an AV across the river. I started to yell at him, and he almost came over to fight me. So that was the most exciting part about it, which doesn't usually happen in church shows in general.
Usually it doesn't happen at church shows, Timmy. No, not usual. Quite odd. Well, dude, it depends on the kind of gig you get. I was down in Miami last February, and this is the first time this has ever happened to me. 2 females get into a fight. I'm in the middle of my set, and leading up to it, they were arguing, and one of them, she was heckling every comic that went up, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to deal with this? And I'm hoping she's going to be gone by the time I get there. And they escorted her out just before I got up there. I went, oh, thank goodness. And as soon as I grabbed the microphone, here she comes marching back in, Timmy. And she's just going at it. But there was a girl at the bar that didn't like it. So now these two, I'm trying to do my set, by the way. Right. And now these two are like nose to nose. They're about to have at it. And, you know, it was a learning experience for me. I didn't know how to deal with the elephant in the room as a comic. As you know, someone said, you just should have done play-by-play or something. Needless to say, Timmy, I bombed really bad.
Well, you know, it could have been worse. You could have been fighting the two women.
Yeah, well, I could have been doing that. You know, Dave Ebert says they were fighting over me. Then things got bad when he said I'm married. That's it, Dave. That's what happened. But no, I thought it was interesting, though, because you never know the mindset of crowds. And, okay, the person that booked you to do the Father's Day event, they probably were not thinking about the logistics of the room and all those different things.
No, absolutely. Absolutely not. And I think which is cool because I'm okay with doing the out of the box scenarios. Like I don't as much as I'm trying to learn the whole Zoom world. You know, I've performed everywhere from 1,000-seat auditoriums to 4 people in a living room in Peterborough up here in Canada. And one of those people didn't even laugh. So it was only 3 technically. But I mean, for me, it's like I used to run when before the pandemic, we used to run in the summers a Timmy's Comedy House tour. And I would go and literally go on tour to people's backyards and kitchens. One of my favorite photos of me performing comedy is on a stool beside someone's fridge. And to me, I think that keeps us moving as artists to really kind of put ourselves in positions that aren't the traditional performing environment. And I think that just makes us stronger.
I totally agree with you. You have to be the kind of guy that really cannot care where you're performing, what demographic you're performing in front of, the numbers of people. Is it 1 or 1,000? Does it matter? It doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter if you're a really good comic. And it's only going to make you better with that mentality, you know? Right. I can't tell you how many times guys go to a performance, an open mic, for example, and say, there's only 2 people here. I'm going home. Well, you don't want to get better.
Exactly. I tell we have a mentoring squad up here at Upstanding Comedy, and I tell my young team all the time is like, you need to bring the same amount of energy to the 2-person as 100, because so many comics let the crowd dictate. Not only do they let them dictate their energy level, they let them dictate their material. They'll walk up there and right away start going, oh, what do I do now? It's like, no. You control the crowd. You set the pace. Walk to the stage as if you've been there before. Walk to the stage like you know you're funny. Make the audience come into your world and don't let them affect you. And that goes across the board with your energy level and material and everything. You're in command.
You've got a great style too. I love the way that you come out in the suit. You're in total control of your set, of your routine, what you're doing. Very composed, and it's like a little off center. However, you're in total command, and I love that. And here's the thing: you're a clean comic, which I love. Timmy, can you tell us why you perform as a clean comedian?
I would say primarily it was because it was in me. It was who I am. Like I don't curse and talk about rude things in life. And a rule to any comic would be you got to be yourself. Like I don't think there is one better than the other. If you're a blue comic, be a blue comic, but be you. Yeah. And so number 1, it stems from who I am. Number 2, though, as a writer, I find that when one expletive can really bring a room up energy-wise by dropping in the right spot. As a writer, though, I'm always going, how do I say the same thing, maybe in more words, but how do I really creatively attack that one expletive? How do I really attack
Yeah.
that one kind of shock bomb?
Yeah.
And creatively with wit, how do I do that? And again, I'm not saying there's not a place for the shock bomb. I'm just saying, for me as a writer, that's in me as well, that I just find I want to find a better way to say it.
Well, I tell young comics all the time, as I have befriended a lot of comics that are not clean, and I say, listen, you know what? If this is what you do, that's fine, but you can use other words that would make that joke, if not just as funny, even funnier.
Right.
But you just have to put more thought into it, but it's there, because when you check down to the easy laugh, throw that at the shocking phrase, everybody's reacting to that, but they're not reacting to the fact that you have written a good joke.
Right. Yeah. And
they're not laughing at that.
You can't carry it. You can't carry it long term. I mean, ultimately it will lose its. And now, to be fair, there are certain low brand humor stuff that is universal. Like in a movie like Airplane, when an adult runs through an airport and pushes over a child or an elderly person, I still laugh. Some people would say that's low brand humor, but so there's a place for it. But there is certainly, I think a laziness has come into the comedy world, though, because of how much money got put into low brand comedy, and I think we need to really bring back that. Bring back a higher wit comedy that may take a little while for audiences to recognize again.
Now, I'm like you, Timmy. I mean, I speak my truth on stage. I'm not a person that uses profanity. I just don't. So I don't do it on stage, and so you have to be true to who you are. Now, there's some guys, I can go back as far as Richard Pryor, who I happen to think's the funniest stand-up comic I've ever seen. But, he was actually speaking his world. I mean, he lived there. I mean, he honestly was telling you his real truth. Now, here's the problem, Timmy. You get a lot of guys that mimic that, but it's not who they are.
Right.
It's like, it just isn't you, and you're doing a great disservice to yourself. But I really love what you said about, hey, what other word can I use here other than that expletive that will make it just as funny,
right,
if not funnier? I mean, that's really the great challenge. And
one of the things that I find, because there's a stigma attached to clean comedy, that for some reason it can't be funny. And what I like about your Richard Pryor and guys say like a modern day a Chris Rock even, I try to explain to people that there are good writers and bad writers in both the clean world and the not clean world.
Absolutely.
And I can look past, like you did with Pryor. I use Chris Rock when I'm talking to people in nowadays, but I would sit there and say I can look past the F-bomb even every second sentence. I can look past that if there's great writing. What bothers me is when the person puts in the F-bomb or drops a completely rude topic bomb. And you realize that they did that because they don't know how to craft a joke. But when you see the masters, when you see the guy, I can sit there and say, look, I'll watch a quote unquote dirty comic if they are presenting a skill set that I can still admire and go, you know what? I may not use those particular words, but they are not using that as a cover up for a lack of skill. It's part of who they are, and I think that's a very important distinction. Which is why too, some people will say, "Oh, I just want to listen to clean comics." There's a lot of bad clean comics out there too. So like, let's not go clean is better. It comes down to writing, and I think everybody who's a fan of comedy needs to be able to distinguish whether dirty or clean. Where is the good comedy? Where is the good comedy? Where is the good commentary on life using humor to talk about it?
At the end of the day, it's all about being whoever it is you are and accentuating it. There's a comedian out there. I don't know if you've ever heard of Corey Holcomb or not. Have you ever heard of Corey?
I have not, no.
Corey Holcomb is an African-American comedian. He's probably about my age, in his 50s. And he comes out with, and listen, I'm not going to go get on my computer and dial him up because it's just not my brand of humor per se.
Right.
However, anytime I see the guy, I mean, I'm just losing it, and it's because going back to what you said about the writing and the time, you can tell he put great effort into his material.
Right.
And that's what I can't go seeking him out, Timmy. I can't because it's really dark. And it's a level dude of ghetto Jack. I'm like, oh my God. But it's so funny. Timmy,
Right.
It is so funny. And at the end of the day, it's about writing and putting the effort and time in to be good at your craft.
Do you find as a clean entertainer that you sometimes are afraid to tell people what you find funny? Like, I used to have a list given to me by someone in my family. It was like, you know what? I know you love that movie, but please don't tell anybody you like that movie.
No, I don't. Honestly, that doesn't stop me. If I like it, I like it. Yeah. People may look at me differently. I never even thought about it. That's a really great question, Timmy. But I don't really. I don't ever think about it. I'm just, I'm kind of like you. I think you alluded to it a moment ago. It's like, if something's really funny, I mean, I can look past it. I really can. I mean, I could go back to the 70s and when you had Saturday Night Live in its heyday with Bill Murray and Chevy Chase and John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. The Blues Brothers came out of that. The Animal House came out of that. And those guys were pretty rude, man. They were a wild bunch. However, they were very, very funny. They were very funny. And then it kind of morphed into, now you being from Canada, I know you're aware of SCTV.
Yeah, they're the SNL equivalent. I've heard some people try to like rank it kind of 1, 2, but anyone who has seen SCTV, that's the heyday of SNL was the same as the heyday of SCTV. Those are geniuses even across the board.
Yeah, there's no question about it. The only difference between the two was everything was pre-recorded on SCTV. I mean, man, Martin Short, John Candy, Eugene Levy. I mean, those guys are legendary to me. But and then as I got older and I started to get my faith lined up and start to understand, listen, this is the way you need to be as a man of God. I just kind of went that way with it. But I still think they're wildly funny. I still think they're wildly funny.
It's funny. A comedian once told me when I first got started, he said, look, people aren't going to care whether or not you're clean or dirty. All they want to know is, are you funny?
That's all they're going to want to know. I know that my wife is from Brazil. I'll give you a great example. There's a joke I tell that she misses because of the culture. Like, she doesn't quite resonate with it because of the differences in culture. So in her ears, she's like, I hate that joke. It's horrible. It's terrible. You shouldn't be telling that joke. And I try to explain to her over and over the point of the joke. And what she realized, she said, you know what? I don't think I have the right to tell you to stop because everybody laughs every time you tell it.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, if it's making people laugh, I'm going to stop doing it. So, I mean, it just gets back to people just want to laugh. Yeah. And if you can do it or find a way to make them laugh consistently, that's what you're going for. And the key is it funny to you? Now, I want to ask you this, Timmy. Tell us a little, we were playing a clip from the date night comedy tour, I believe. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so date night was it was a mix of stand-up, I guess marital advice and a game show. We did a live game show. It was a family feud type of thing. We had our own like game show box with the microphones and everything. It was pretty cool. But yeah, it was a huge. We only ran it in February's up here. It was a Valentine date night thing, but we were filling rooms, 1,000 people strong.
Wow.
That night that was shown there it was just amazing, and it showed not only the need for good solid comedy, but the need for couples to get out and to have that laugh together. I'm a firm believer in the couples that laugh together stay together. Absolutely.
There's no question about it, man. And we're talking about comedy in Canada, which I find Canadian humor really Canadian humor and English humor to me is pretty awesome. Can you kind of define though the differences between humor in Canada and the United States?
Yeah, I think it's the difference is, I don't know if I can define it per se, but the difference is definitely rooted in the British
Culture.
influence that we had.
Yeah.
I have Irish roots, but Canada in general has that British core, which is a very witty but very quirky and weird. You know, go back to SCTV. There was some strange dudes happening, characters in that show. You know,
yes, there were.
Right? Like, but Monty Python, you know, I mean, that's as off the wall as you're gonna get. But there was this wit within it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the thing. There's a dryness to Canadian humor, which is also, you know, in our winter air. So that makes sense. But I think that's the main difference. There's a dry, wittier level. I'm not going to say, I don't think you can generalize it across the board. You know, like people in Canada are going to laugh at a fart joke as much as Americans will, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a wit and a quirkiness that comes out of that British base that the Americans don't necessarily have, to no fault of their own. They didn't. They still don't have. They don't have the Queen. You guys don't have the Queen anymore, right?
No.
Yeah, I don't think we do too, but we still have her on our money and stuff. And it's a very weird thing. I have a picture of her on our wall. We're supposed to all still have it, but anyway, that's a different story.
So, Timmy, we've got June Von Coulson. She says that you really invest in comics, and you gave her courage to get on stage for the first time.
I love June. I met her down at the Christian Comedy Association, and I don't even know. I think we met just having a meal, and I walked in. I helped her, I don't know, get up the courage to walk into a room to try some material, whatever. But I love June. I'm so glad she's watching today.
You know, you get comedy if you go around the world. Have you had a chance to do comedy abroad?
Yeah. Well, Canada and the States. I haven't gone overseas. I'm still trying to get an Australian tour put together. My publisher for Inside Timmy's Mind is an Australian publisher, and so we were trying pre-pandemic to try to get me over there, but so far it's North America based.
So Timmy, you're clearly performing in front of some pretty big audiences, but I'm kind of curious as far as working on material and so forth and expanding, you know, your routines or what have you, making new jokes, trying new stuff. Do you ever hit open mics, or pre-COVID, of course?
You know, I don't take advantage of the open mic scenario. I live in a small village.
Okay.
I've been out here for 8 years now. There isn't a whole lot going on. I went down to a cafe here in town where they were trying to start an open mic, and I actually met one of our opening acts that are on our mentoring squad now. She just wanted to try it for the first time after seeing me do some stuff on the open mic there. But I got into comedy through Leland Clausen and was immediately dropped onto stages of 200 to 300 people, and him letting me just wing it for 20 minutes. And so I even entered into comedy not through the traditional realm of having to work out my material in front of 2 or 3 drunks at a bar. Like I got thrown into kind of a bigger thing.
Right.
And from there, so that environment, it was just not a part of my daily pattern. I already had 3 children. So I never, you know, it's kind of like, how do I maximize my weekend money as quick as I can? So the whole open mic concept, I think I would like to do more now, but it's never really been a part of my repertoire. And, you know, I think now that we've gone through COVID, and I've really kind of I'm itching to get back in front of people, I probably would hunt them out more, but obviously, you know, we can't. And I'm hoping that as soon as COVID ends, that I don't need to go into the open mic circle again either, that I can keep busy doing other stuff. But that being said, not all my shows are large. So sometimes, you know, 4 people in a living room, you know, that's no different than an open mic. I just wouldn't call it an open mic.
Yeah, yeah. I know Jerry Seinfeld is a big believer in open mics. Chris Rock, you mentioned Chris Rock earlier. Guys like that really believe in it, and most comedians believe that open mics are necessary. However, there's arguably the greatest stand-up of all time. For my money, I would say Richard Pryor. But if you told me this guy, I wouldn't have a problem, and that's George Carlin.
Oh, yeah.
George Carlin was a guy that, and is probably born from the fact that he grew up in a show business home.
Right.
But George Carlin would sit down and he would write an hour-long set to his own satisfaction and go, okay, it's ready. It's ready for presentation. And he would just go out and kill. And he was never, and that was just his way, his style of just kind of preparing. I guess a lot of comics have their own way. I think the consensus would be hit the open mics.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I've never really written a joke in terms of, like, I know a lot of comics have their notepads and stuff. And so I'm so much like, I go out there, I experience something, I take it, next time I go to the stage, I take it to the stage and flush it out. Like that story you heard at the top of the show about me, getting stuck in traffic and stuff. That was a genuine story.
Yeah.
And so I could probably say that maybe I haven't taken advantage of the open mic circuit as much as I could. But like I said, where I'm situated right now, it's hard to find anything. If I was still based in Toronto, it might be something now that I would do, but I don't know. I think that's the beauty of this journey, is that there really is there's no pattern. There's no way to do it. People have found success through some really weird routes in comedy, doors that open that no one was expecting. And I think the key is just make sure you're performing somewhere, somehow.
Exactly. I would totally agree with that. I would. So with all of that being said, and because you've described some interesting scenarios of performing where you've been performing, and I don't think what I'm about to ask you now is really avoidable as a comic. I wouldn't think it is anyway. However, I want to ask you, how do you deal with hecklers, Timmy?
I don't. This is what, first of all, what I tell people is, if you're in one of my shows, and you feel that your heckling is going to somehow cause me to be flustered, or that it's gonna beat me, then they would have hired you to be on the stage instead of me. Like,
they would have done that.
Yeah. So I like to engage in the audience, and in a lot of church shows, which is where a lot of my shows happen to be, you don't often get hecklers. You get talkers, though. They're in an environment where as soon as you engage them, now they just feel like they want to talk to you. They're not heckling per se, but they just want to chatter. Yeah. And whether or not I get those chatterers in the heckling form, or just they start to talk too much, my thing with them is I'll engage them for as long as I need to, and then, to be, there's no shame in saying this. I don't think it's a pride issue. I'm good enough to shut you down if I need to. And I think that there's certain things in my back pocket. I think all of us have 4 or 5 lines that can pretty much get us out of any situation that someone says. It's not like someone heckles us and we're like, I've never heard that one before. But I try to do it nice. I don't try to do it mean, but I try to be firm. And people will come up at the end of a show sometimes and go, and apologize. Like, I'm sorry, I hope I didn't cause, too much problem. And I'll be like, no, like, it's okay. Like, if I had wanted to stop the conversation, I would have. But I think the culture is changing. Like, in the clubs, I've heard, they don't even let it happen. Like, a heckler starts going and a bouncer takes them out now. Like the culture is changing. That generation where everyone was allowed to just jump up and be a part of the show, people aren't taking that anymore. It's like, just shut up. We all want to watch the show. We don't want to hear you. And I think that's changing.
I totally agree with you. I mean, we're in a new era now. I mean, like, my daughter calls this generation Generation Z, right?
Okay.
Oh, Generation Z. And
so this is it then. This is the last one. There's nowhere to go past Z.
There's nowhere to go after this, Timmy. So I mean, but I kind of look at it. I call it the generation of the dude, Timmy. I
Okay.
call this, yeah, this is the dude generation. The dude
Nice.
generation is like hoodies, throwback Chuck Taylors, brand new pair of jeans with the knees torn out, PlayStation 5, the Munchies, and DoorDash.
Okay. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and the thing about the dude generation is they figured out how to make tons of money playing video games.
Right.
I tell my son all the time, keep playing. Mom and dad
Yeah.
want a new house. Keep playing. I'll run to Domino's. I'll be your DoorDash.
Yeah, I tell my son that too. Just keep playing because I'm a professional comic. Someone's gonna have to pay for my life like in a few years, right?
Right.
Like I got no backup plan. These hands, I wish you could feel these hands, Maurice. I haven't done a hard day's labor like ever. Like these are comedian hands, super smooth. Like there's people say, why don't you go find another job during COVID? It's like no, this is literally all I do. Like this is what I do. So my son better make some money at some point.
Yes, absolutely. Just tell him you defeat the Sultan of the 66th dimension, and I'll run to Domino's.
Oh man, you're in deep if you even know about the Sultan.
I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. It's all goofy to me. I don't get it, but they love playing these games, man. I'd say. Now, let me ask you this, Timmy, and this is another deal that a comic just can't avoid, and that's bombing. What is your worst bombing experience?
Well, let me disagree with you. I've avoided bombing. So, here's the thing about bombing. I don't know if it's a sick pleasure within me, Maurice. I don't know if it's just me.
Yeah.
But I get this immense joy out of taking the stage, hoping that something goes wrong. Like there's something like the beautiful thing about comedy is it's so subjective, and you can take the same material night after night after night into a different room, and you can literally go from standing ovations to crickets depending on the room. Same material, same delivery on the same rhythm.
True. Yeah.
And that excites me. It excites me not the standing ovations as much as they're appreciated. It excites me that the next night could go horribly wrong in tank. And to me, like that it just really drives me. The show that I did, calling comedians in quarantine, I didn't do mic checks. I didn't do anything. We had so many technical problems over 100 episodes, and it just drove me to keep doing like it's just a mishmash of stuff with some great interviews in the midst of it. But I love the chaos of the fact that anything could go wrong in comedy, and I embrace it.
Now, let me ask you something. As you were describing that, it prompted a question that I'd love to get your response to.
Sure.
Because it is kind of weird how you can go out and execute, do everything that you wanted to do and kill. I mean, you have a really, really good show. And then the next audience comes in or the next night and you do the exact same thing, same cadence, yet nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, now I think it may be obvious what brings that on, but what do you think causes a comic to end up in a situation like that? And is there any way out of it?
What gets them into a situation where it's crickets?
Yeah, I mean, what do you think is the cause of that? Like you got this same set in front of the same number of people.
Yeah.
Kill one night, bomb the next. What's the deal with that?
That is simply it's just the subjectiveness of comedy. Like as long as we're dealing with people, the very weirdness and craziness of a human being that we have to perform in front of is the same craziness and haphazardness that actually keeps us employed, right? Because my material comes from those crazy, weird people. And I think that you can't avoid it. If you are going to do this as a profession and you are going to challenge yourself, it is inevitable, because even not just whether or not someone finds a joke funny, but even in the realm of clean or not clean, there, you can go into one room and somebody can go, that wasn't a clean joke. And you're like, what? Like there are levels of clean even.
Yeah, there are.
So
Yeah.
that subjectiveness is going to, you can't escape it. And the only way to escape it is this: only do 7 minutes of really pushing out of any boundaries material.
Yeah.
Keep that 7 and literally walk into full rooms at the end of a really good opener and do your 7 minutes and walk off the stage. But if you want to actually do this and survive as a professional and challenge yourself and grow, it is an inevitable experience. And if you don't learn to embrace it and not let it, I tell people this: the job that I have chosen is a soul crushing job. And I've had to learn to protect myself.
Yes.
And if you don't learn how to protect yourself, you will die and fade away and curl up in a corner.
Well, listen, I had Chris Strait on the show yesterday. Have you ever met Chris?
I have not, no.
Chris Strait did a dry bar comedy special recently, and I had him on the show, but he said he made an interesting comment that kind of lines up with what you said. He said, if you stop bombing, you stop getting better.
Yes, I fully agree. He's a wise man.
And that's the kind of brutal game this is, being a comedian. It's like you want to keep getting better. And I love what you said a moment ago, which I find very, very funny, but also very inspiring. And that is, I love the fact that I could bomb, more or less. I mean, you were kind of saying that. The challenge of not doing it. I love the challenge of not doing it when it could very well happen. Like that kind of motivates you. And I think that if you are not that kind of person, you won't stay in it long.
No. And there's a reason why a lot of people don't. Most of the people that are, I mean, quite frankly, I mean, there's a lot of comics out there, but a lot of them are doing exactly what I said. They've got 7 minutes of gold in their pocket, and they're doing it night after night in the clubs. And in their minds, maybe that's all they need out of life. That's cool. I have no knock against them, but you're not going to progress in the game. And I think that's what's freed me as a comic is that if you can embrace that, it's allowed me to go to the stage. I'm a very different comic than I was 12 years ago when I started, or 13 now. In the fact that I've learned to walk out on stage and not be afraid to try new things and go places and embrace the quiet and the pause and the awkward moments and and let it go, and then and pull out the gems out of a lot of stuff you just toss out onto the crowd. And I'm not afraid to do that anymore.
So with that, let me ask you this: are you the type of person, when you do have a bad experience, are you the type of guy that can kind of brush it off, or does it take you a couple of days to get over?
It still takes me a few minutes. I mean, I as much as you can say, and I really do believe it. Like I enjoy those moments.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, there's as creative people, we still have that little bit of us that wants to be liked and things that we like. So it still takes me a while. But I used to get in a car after some of these shows, and I mean, traveling around. I mean, sometimes your car ride after a show could be a couple hours.
Yeah.
And I had to create a mantra, like literally to like I have to say it over and over and over and over again. And it was basically like, whatever I said on the stage, I can't take back. And whatever I didn't say, please let it be used. And I had to just say that over and over and over again, because it would just eat at me, thinking about all the things that I didn't say, all the things that went wrong, all the things that I thought would hit and didn't. But I don't know. I think you just gotta go. You just gotta go, and if you don't let it go, like I said, it's gonna go back to that same thing, like you said before. If you don't learn to let it go, it will crush your soul, and you'll never do it again.
There's so many things about this business that you learn up there on that daggone stage, and I learned something just before the pandemic. I did a show, and I never get angry with other comics, or I'm a pretty jovial guy. But I went to an open mic in Washington, D.C. Packed. The place was packed. One of the best open mics you'll ever run into.
Nice.
And I got there early, and I told the guy, I said, listen, I'm going to be over here So just to let you know, I'm here. I know the show's got a while. You're doing your stuff. Do your thing, but I'm here. So about 20 minutes passes by, and I look up, and he's signing in. Or everybody that's there, they're signing up. He never said anything to me.
Sure.
I became very angry all of a sudden. It just came over me, right? And I went over to where the list was, and I reached out and I grabbed the list, right? And I put my name on the list and gave it back, right? And I said, and I told another comic, I said, you know what? If I'm not one of the first 10, I'm out of here. And I ended up being, oh, no, he's just getting the names together. You got to be first. And I ended up being 9th, and I stayed, which I should, because I'm angry. I mean, Timmy, I just should have gone home.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm there, and I did I did a set that killed the night before. I said, I'm going to do this set. I'm going to kill, and I'm going to go home. But I'm mad, dude. And I get up there, and I guess I didn't realize, Timmy, that I was still angry. So when I got up there, and you're on this little box, you don't have, and I like to move around. I don't like standing still.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm on this box, and the place is crowded, and I throw the first joke out, nothing. And I'm going, oh, whoa. Ah, wow. So the next one, nothing. Now I'm dying. And so, this little cord here, Timmy, sometimes it'll come out.
Yeah.
And it fell out, right? And I reached to pick it up. And I go, hey, what do I do with this? He said, just plug it back in. Okay. Hey, listen, I plug it in. I go, hey, thanks a lot. And some girl in the audience went, his name is Dave. I go, thank you. And I continued to bob, Timmy. But so I guess what I'm saying is, long story short, it was a funny experience. I think it's really funny that happened because I was mad. I was just angry at this guy. I couldn't get it out of my head. And then I had to deal with the challenge of being on this little box, which made me feel very self-conscious for some reason. And it was just like the perfect storm. But again, the key really is, it also, sometimes anger can fuel you to a higher level of comedy. It makes you better. But I learned that about myself because I'm such a jovial person in general when I'm there. If I get into a bad headspace, it's probably not a good idea for me to perform.
Right. Okay.
But, even at that, you've got to overcome it.
Yeah.
It's like you really got to let that stuff go. And it was so funny. It was a set I had done on blackface. Governor Ralph Northam got in trouble because they found some blackface photos in his yearbook, and I made a bunch of jokes about it, and it was really funny at an African American Latino spot. But where I am here, where I bombed, I was at a young white Republican spot, and they were all like pages and whatnot and so forth. Oh my gosh, it was so bad. Anyway, long story short, the key is, can you laugh about what happened? Can you find out why you bombed, what went wrong, and make the adjustments?
Yeah. It's all adjustments. Yeah.
It's always about making adjustments, and you can't get away from this stuff. I mean, because I don't know about you, Timmy, but whenever it happens, there's never a doubt in my mind that I'm coming back.
Right.
I mean, that's just never entered my mind that I'm not going to come right back. It's just like, oh man, that was horrible. That was really, really horrible. But you're always hoping, well, I can figure it out. And if you're the type of person that's like that, like I said, you don't have to say I quit. You will quit because it can tear up your character, dude. There's no question about it. Have you ever had, Timmy, a crossroads experience in comedy where you were like, I don't know if I want to continue to do this?
I've never had a crossroads experience in entertainment in general.
Okay.
I've always wanted to go this route. I went to school for film and television. I still want to do TV and film. I still so hey, I'm available. But I have had crossroads of, I produce my own shows up here. The circuit comedy tour that you mentioned earlier. It's where
Yeah.
we were about to enter into season 10. We've done over almost 250 shows here in Ontario. We're the largest clean
Wow.
comedy tour that nobody's heard of. But there are times where I have crossroads of whether or not I want to keep producing shows.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want to perform again. But in this business, at Everett, I mean, you want to go into the top level and go Jay-Z in music, Ben Stiller in movies, whatever it is. In this business, in order to stay alive, we need to create our own work, and you need to go into producing roles, and you need to do that type of stuff if you really want to be able to sustain. And so that's where my crossroads is sometimes. I this last couple of years, I've been kind of like, I just want to stop the tour. I want to stop all the production. I just want to perform. But in terms of a crossroads of entertainment,
yeah,
I would never go into anything else. Like I said, these hands will be like this till I'm 140, which is my goal. I'm gonna do entertainment in some form for the rest of my life.
How long did it take you, Timmy, to realize that, hey, you know what, I can be pretty good at this? I guess it's like asking you, how long did it take you to realize your voice or find your voice in comedy?
I think those are two different questions. The first one would be, I've always known I'm good at it. Now, a lot of people might be watching this show right now going, seriously, you do this professionally? Whatever. The point is that right. I know I'm good at what I do. I've received enough validation throughout my life, whether it be a house party or in church, trying to be the kid who makes the drama play a little bit more humorous. Like, does Funniest Pilot, can't he just jump out and like have like a Superman cape? And they're like, no, you can't do that. Like, so I know I'm funny. I know I'm good. I wouldn't be doing this professionally for over a decade as a living if I wasn't good. So that's just the reality. Now, the other question though of finding my voice in terms of a stand-up is a whole different thing. When I first took the stage, I was not the same comic that I am today. And it took me a few years to develop the persona that you talked about at the beginning, the laid backness, the little bit off center, the confidence level. When I first started performing, button down dress shirt, khaki pants, eventually went into a kind of a more dressy thing in terms of an homage to the older comics. I drink out of an orange juice glass in homage to Dean Martin. And I slowly, my pace started to change. I started to become more comfortable, and then I added the suit jackets, and I had a fedora at one point, but that didn't feel comfortable. And so I used to be known as an angry comic. Now I'm much more kind of relaxed, and kind of there's a different feel. And so finding my voice in comedy took a while to get into the skin of who I am as a stand-up. But in terms of knowing that I'm good at entertaining, I'll tell people this day, I can go into any room, hire me for a living room party, whatever it is. I can entertain people for hours upon hours, just entertaining them. It doesn't even have to be a stand-up. So I know I can do that. But my voice, that took a while. My look, my persona, how I want to present, that took a while.
Okay. And I love the fact that you said that you've always been pretty good at comedy, and I guess building that persona, building that image, I guess even maybe your brand as a comedian, that is a completely different question. And it's like, okay, that takes a while to really establish and then kind of perfect. Like, all right, this is it, right? Let me just do some more polishing on it. But this is it. This is the guy I want to be right here.
Yeah.
This is the guy I'm going to sell. And so that took you about how long to put together, Timmy?
Well, 2000, I would say 2000, and I started in 2007 when I first was invited out on Leland stage as a stand-up comic.
Okay.
And it probably 2011, I had gone into what I would the laid back suit, orange juice glass. And my pacing had really slowed down. But so it took me 4 or 5 years, but I would say really because I was also encouraged very early on by some people who have changed their minds now too. But I was raised up. My mentoring crowd was people who believed in pure stand-up, and I was an entertainer underneath it, and so I always wanted to bust out and to do like Sonny and Cher and do interpretive dance in the midst of it. And they would always like, that's not stand-up. And so it's only been the last, I would say, 5 years of that journey. So, 7 years in before I started to really figure out, Timmy Boyle now can walk out on the stage in a suit, drinking out of orange juice. I don't even wear shoes now. Like if you go on my website, it's the suit, the socks, the OJ. I mean, it's the three defining factors. And I walk out there now. And by the end of the show, I could have done a front handspring, off the end. I could have broken into, I've Got You, Babe. I could have sang a song about the 80s and be ultimately standing there in roller skates by the end of the show. So that took about 7 or 8 years to kind of go, no, you need to be fully you. Throw out the whole pure stand-up and just go be you.
I like that. That's really interesting because, there are not a lot of comedians now in this era that have kind of, and this is for lack of a better word. I know there's a better word than what I'm about to use, but shtick. Yeah. It's like you have a shtick where it's like you have a genre in which you portray, and you're like that's where you are. You're all in that, and it's pretty cool. And there's a comic that went for a brief time was the best comic in the world back in the 70s that had a style like that. It was Steve Martin.
Yes.
Yeah. Steve Martin in 1979 was the hottest comic in the world.
Yeah.
And he had a distinct style and shtick, persona, aura, whatever you want to call it, that he was married to. I mean, Steve Martin, when he comes out, that's what you're going to get for the next hour and a half.
Yeah. Or rather, you don't know what you're going to get would be the
or more specifically, you don't know what you're going to get from Steve, which is why you love Steve Martin. But you don't see a lot of comics, long story short, that are like doing that kind of thing and then doing it really, really well. But as I think about it, you kind of put me in mind of Steve Martin, because you have total command of this way that you got to carry it, for the next, 45 minutes to 60 minutes, which is really cool. I love that. Let me ask you this, Timmy. So what's the biggest thing about comedy that you have learned after all these years that's actually made you better?
To truly trust my comedic voice, like to be me, to not try to be someone else. Like I did get, Darren Streblow, who you mentioned, a fantastic comic and a fantastic human being.
Yes.
He compared me to Steve Martin, and and I would never want to put myself in the shoes of a legend, but if you want to know what my style could be on stage, that's it. But that came out of me finally going, don't try to be other people. Don't try to be this or that. Just be you. Let Timmy Boyle come out. And I would recommend that to everyone. That's the number one rule I would put out to anybody is trust your own comedic voice, and frame it how, and maybe there's certain styles and stuff you want to frame it in, but you got to trust your own comedic voice. And it took me a long time to trust that and to let it fly out in all of its fullness.
One of the things that helped me early on is a fellow comedian. I was at a show, and when it was over, she screamed out, "You committed, Maurice! Maurice, you committed!" And so what I got out of that was, and it kind of lines up with what you just said, it's like wherever you're going to go, be that 100%.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, don't hold back. Let it rip. Whatever it is you're going to be, don't get into the middle of a joke and then, half toss it. Yes. Let it rip. That's what you believe. Stand on it. An
audience is like a dog that can smell fear. Walk out there, and if you don't sell you and your joke 100%, they will be able to know right away. Oh, he doesn't even. Why should we buy into that joke? He doesn't even buy into the joke.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That is 100% correct. Let's see. June Von Colson She just chimed in and she said that you literally, Timmy, she said you literally flipped when she was calling on our calling comedian show.
Yes, when she was on my show, my show is exactly like my stage show,
Yeah.
where anything could happen. And when she was on being interviewed, I walked out into the hallway and did a front handspring down my hallway. It is not a very wide hallway. It was pretty death-defying, but I did that on the show, and that's how I want to do my stuff. One of the greatest compliments I ever received from somebody at a show was they said the reason why we keep coming back to Timmy Boyle shows is because we don't know what's going to happen this time.
Yeah.
So even though my material might be the same, I go off these tangents, and that's what I love about it. So I'm glad that June thought that moment was good, but that's actually that's going to be launched on YouTube very soon.
Man, you gotta be true to yourself. Like I said, I have 3 kids, 24, 22, and 19. And I used to tell them all the time when they were growing up, Timmy, hey, listen, you're not thugs. Okay. Just understand that you have a dad who's a black man that talks like Tom Hanks. So
that's where it is. I was trying to put it together. I'm like, what does he sound like? It's Tom Hanks.
Yeah, that's not going to work out too good at the cookout. Stop it.
No, you've got a Samuel L. Jackson look with a Tom Hanks voice. That is very cool.
Man, try to pull that one off, Timmy. But,
right?
So listen, Timmy, man, this has been a great 60-minute conversation, man. I could go on for 2 hours easy with you. I think I didn't ask all of my questions. I think this has been a great week. I've just had a ton of fun talking with the comedians, man. Well, before we go, is there any advice, Timmy, that you can leave with young, aspiring, more specifically, clean comedians?
I wouldn't say anything particular to clean comedians, because I would love the day, Maurice, where we don't even have to put the word clean in front of our names.
I like that. That's good.
I just want to be a comic. And
I totally agree. Totally agree.
Something happened a long time ago where you had to define yourself as the dirty comic, and then it shifted, and now we have to define. I just want to be known as a comic. So here, my advice would simply be this: other than the fact of be true to yourself, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
Do not underestimate the amount of time that needs to be invested in this. Like I think so many comics come up to me and go, when am I going to have my 45-minute thing? And it's like, I want you to do 3 minutes. And they're like, oh, 3 minutes is too short. But you go up on stage for 3 minutes and it's not good, it feels like 5 hours. And until you can do 1 minute of good comedy, you're never going to be able to do 60 minutes of good comedy. And everybody just wants to get there so fast because they hear like guys like, some of the guys out there now, like names are slipping me, but people that are putting out specials like every year. But what people aren't understanding is that there is decades of work behind them that got them to that ability to speed the process up. Like, don't be looking for your special until the first 10 years. Like if you try to get it in early, great. But don't underestimate that this is a long play in this thing. And just, every time you take to the stage, gain one more fan. You don't need everybody to like you. You just need every show, get another booking. Every show, build one more fan. Every show, twist the joke up a little bit more. So it's little tweaks over the long play that makes this stuff go.
I totally agree. Great words of advice. And to piggyback on that, I have because you can end up making your name mud. I have a buddy of mine who took a gig out in Vegas. It was a big gig. I mean, it was like 45-minute headlining gig. Wasn't near ready. He wasn't near ready for that. But he took it as an opportunity, not only to make money, but to make a name. And dude, he just went out there and bombed. I mean, it was just merciless. It hampered his ability to get hired for years.
Right. Yeah.
Because he wasn't ready. You can't jump out there until you've got good stuff.
Well, and those people as well as a word to those people who are doing it, understand that you're hurting not only your own potential growth, but you're hurting the industry. Because when people go out there, I've heard stories, guys go out there, they ask for headliner money, somebody pays them that, And then they don't hire any of the clean comics again because they're like, we hired this other clean guy and he was not worth that. And so it actually hampers the whole industry. Just recognize where you are. It's self-awareness, right, Maurice?
Yeah.
Which is something missing in our world in general. But people just be self-aware, understand where you are in your growth curve, and don't try to hit money like that. Just grow, find those opportunities and grow, and realize that it's a journey. I guess they could go back to, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
No, well, and you're 100% correct. It's building blocks, and it takes a while. Some people, Timmy, are naturals, and they progress faster than others. It's not about speed. It's about being the real deal.
Yes.
And it just may take you longer, whatever, but there's a process to this, and you don't want to damage your career. You don't want to damage the genre. I mean, there's all kind of things, negative things, that come out of just trying to jump out there before you're ready. Great advice, Timmy. Great advice.
Let me say this too, though, Maurice. When people said to me, how did you become a headliner so quickly? Because I really did. I mean, Leland gave me opportunities that really jumped me into it.
Yeah.
But the fact is, though, is at that point, I had over almost 30 years of performing. I was on stage in every capacity, as a teacher, as a speaker, as a performer, as an actor. So it felt like I jumped into a quick headlining, but I had had decades of live performance and speaking. It was just a matter of learning the intricacies. And so life experience matters as well, but be comfortable with your own journey. Don't try, just like we don't want to copy other people's styles, don't copy other people's journeys either.
Great advice, Timmy. Great advice. How can fans follow you on social media or contact you for booking?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm available for virtual shows. Let's do this thing up. Social media is at The Real Timmy Boyle on Facebook and on Instagram. So at The Real Timmy Boyle. Upstandingcomedy.ca or timmyboyle.com. Both of those take you to the same page. That's where all my booking goes through.
Okay.
And then, but I really would like to say, if you're interested in talking about seeing what I do and what other comics are doing, calling comedians into quarantine, go to Timmy's Shorts on YouTube. It's called Timmy's Shorts. You'll see a picture of my tight blue shorts. But on there is calling comedians into quarantine. It's also in podcast form. But basically, go to at The Real Timmy Boyle on social media, upstandingcomedy.ca, and you can find the links to everything, including my store. If Michael Keaton is not your Batman, keep social distancing. Like, seriously. I don't want to talk to you if Michael Keaton isn't your Batman. But anyways, so upstandingcomedy.ca, you can find everything you need to find there. But I really appreciate you having me on here, and I'm a big fan of collaboration. In fact, I think it's a necessity. Too many comedians try to do this journey on their own, and so I thank you for having me on your show today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Hey, the same here, Timmy. I love having quality performers on this show, and you are definitely one of those. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with the very funny and talented Timmy Boyle. If you like this show, subscribe to my comedy channel on YouTube, Maurice Brown Comedy. Like and share. We've been talking once again with the very funny Timmy Boyle from Ontario, Canada. Timmy, thank you so much for being on the show, and may the peace of Christ, my friend, be with you and your family. God bless you.
Stay well and keep on laughing, Maurice.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, brother.